What's the topic of today's stream? Okay, well, the topic after we do the fantasy is I'm starting a new trend called Joybaiting Wednesday. I'm gonna react to some videos today, but I wanted to react in a positive way and point out the things that I agree with and things that I like about other people's videos, and we can make a positive change in the world today. Okay, so Joybaiting activity number 1, OWTV. We're gonna cover this. This is cool. This is really awesome. I love this. Great job, Commander X. Let's react to some videos. This is the what I wanted to watch. Plat to OWCS in 10 months? Is this real? Kawhi bought my coaching in November of 2024 as a Plat hits game player. In 10 months, he's hit GM on 2 accounts and won his debut in OWCS Pacific. Let's move my webcam again.
Nervous after the interview.
And look at him get up. Okay, we are going to cover this GIF with my webcam because I forgot in the second part of that GIF, Cardi gets up and he does a little bit of a stroking motion. Pipes.
This isn't very good fight space. They're playing like a little too aggressive for whatever reason. I'd say like you play here and you play like the long angle and hold for the choke. You can just play the long side and use a Kitsune rush when they come out and use the fact that you're closer to your overclock and stuff. If you play here, there's no off angle that he can take over on the side unless he flanks main.
He's saying they're fighting too aggressively, right? And I guess this is like a criticism of the team and not necessarily of the hits game player. The point is that the Soj doesn't get to get active at all, right? Which like I super agree with. Like if you're ever taking a fight and your Soj is having to like for example, your Soj is here at the beginning of the fight, like this is not a good spot for your Soj, right? Like if you're ever pushing past your actual choke and your Soj just doesn't get to be shooting anything, right? Like that's a good point.
For whatever. So here he has to stack on top of his tank in order to push, which is just like a bad angle for him. There's no like good solution for him. This is like a team problem, not a hits cam problem. But fighting in this position is crap. Compared to if you just
agree with that. This is one thing it's really tricky when you're trying to like VOD review a hit scan and their whole team is like fucking everything up in the VOD. This is actually like this is the worst thing as a coach. DPS players really want to take fights in specific areas, and sometimes the DPS player will send you a VOD and their team is just fighting in a really bad area for them, and they're like, what do I do, right? And it's difficult to give advice to DPS players about this. Like what do you do when your team is just fighting in the wrong space? There's almost always a way to make a certain fight work if you did something differently, right? So the problem is like, do you try to frame it to the DPS as like what should you have tried to do to make this fight work here? Or do you try to frame it to the DPS like this is a bad place to be taking this fight? You need to try to get your team to take the fight in a different way. Because especially if it's like a ranked game, sometimes your team is just gonna fucking fight out here. Okay, now I want to pause here before he says anything. The interesting part to me of that fight is clearly we want to fight outside. How would you have made it work, or how would you have needed to position differently to fight outside? If you want to fight outside, the setup needs to be way closer to something like this, where my Orisa actually, instead of going from here to here, he's actually going to go from here out into this space, and then my Soj gets to actually get a really good angle of the walk up and punish the poke. So if you want to fight early, it needs to be way more similar to this, where my Soj shouldn't have any kind of awkward walk up and should already be positioned basically in the spot where he wants to be. The Genji's way too close, right? So the fight needs to start before the threats get to the spot my hit scan wants to be in. Obviously, if your team is fighting early and you're fucking dying, right, then you did something wrong.
But if his tank is going to walk up in the choke, he should try to not be on top of his tank. He's trying to go for a little pop through the left-hand side as well.
That's important and true. Isn't Kawhi off the corner? Not enough. The problem is like there's nowhere far enough you can be off this corner because you can only get like 3 feet off this corner, right? So it's just not enough. Like why would you be anywhere close to your tank on this retake, right? Like this is what he's saying. If there was more space, you could be off this corner, then it would work because it would be way harder to engage on you.
Going face to face with the enemy tank means that she can surge you. When she has ult, you want to be far away, and you're going close to all these corners that the Genji can be up on.
That's actually really true. Like what he just said, that sounds simple, but I remember last year we had like this incredibly long Orisa meta. Sojourns are like, what if I stand 2 feet away from the Orisa? Because then I can shoot him around this corner. It's like, what if you didn't get hit by the fucking Orisa ult, right? Why do Sojourns love doing this? I don't understand. Do you know the Orisa has ult? Slide away from him before he gets to you instead of, like, or just let him ult you. Because here he's already, clearly he's close and he has a speed imp, right? You're not going to get away.
I would like him to walk to the right.
I agree.
I don't want him to be standing on this base back cover. Tracer Genji's going to dive him, but it's his job to walk wide and take a little bit of aggro and do a little bit of damage and then not die when the Genji dashes something.
Yes,
shoot
exactly.
Genji when he walks up on him and dash back to the team. But I'd like
this is like, that's important. actually. And this, okay, I'm glad he said this because this is something that I really care about. And so now I get to agree with him on Joybaiting Wednesday, and I get to talk about something that I really care about, which is a lot of hit scans are trying not to die, which is important, but that's their whole mindset. And there's lots of ways not to die. The easiest way not to die is to stand in Narnia and do nothing. But then there's a hidden downside, which is that you are doing nothing. The video that I just made was about the way that Crazy Raccoon plays to try to make hit scans do this, where it's like they become so scared that they start getting no value. When they do that, it becomes way easier to win the game without actually having to dive them because you could just encourage them to be useless the whole time.
You see, he doesn't have to be standing here on the mini. If he's standing here on the mini, the Genji's just going to get to him really easily. But if he's at least over on the right a little more,
exactly,
this pillar for cover while he watches the right lane and pokes the main lane, then he can actually control the right side at least a little bit, right?
Yes, I agree with that. It's really important because like if you don't do that, then they can come up to this corner and just fucking front to back your Orisa, and you actually can't do anything. Like they're gonna win poke because of how scared you are to poke back.
Dashes pretty easily, but where he winds up falling back is just all wrong. So
real
you should start
important
poking up here with this pillar.
I really hope what he says is slide back to coast.
When he gets dashed on, he shouldn't be dashing into the middle of the point.
He should be going here.
Over to there.
Nice. This is awesome. This is awesome Joybaiting Wednesday content. The way that you kite away from the first dive is really important because if the way that you kite is to that hiding spot that does nothing, then it's the same problem as the fucking fight before.
Off put a little bit by the fact that last time he overclocked when they pushed.
He died instantly. Yeah.
Here, enemy team pushes in spawn. Genji dashes someone else.
You could have
overclocked
Genji
dashes someone else. I feel like there's a chance for you to pull the clock here.
Yeah.
You can pull the clock.
He's right.
And you can keep.
That's right. Good point.
He has another slide because of the rush, and he doesn't waste it. But where he ultimately winds up sliding is again no man's land. Like he shouldn't be here. This is crap. If you ever see Lip clutching up and carrying the game, he's not sliding into the middle of the points staircase. He's sliding from side to side, up and down this big long stretch. The fucking train tracks across the point where you want to be because there's cover on either side and you can see everything and you can back up well. And
you see everything. Yeah, exactly. If you're hit scan, you're playing into this type of comp. And we've seen like maybe 3 kind of fast fights right now where they're going first and he doesn't really know how to like get into the fight without like dying. You just need a little bit of patience. Just go left, charge rail off this Orisa for a little bit, and then your team's gonna rush, and then he wanted him to peek here. That's a totally fine way to do it. What happened is they actually backed up first, and so I think like you wouldn't need to do this. You could just go to coast instead or something. Let your front line fight their front line first, and be somewhere where you can just shoot and charge the rail. There's almost no situation where you just get value instantly at the beginning of the fight, right? Like I'm gonna need to try to get my tank to trade their CDs down. I'm gonna need to try to stay hidden for a little bit. Obviously, you should have just slid to here, right? This is the way you do it. Like, just flip the map all the way through, which is what he says next, which I super agree with.
So here, instead they rush from the back of the map, they could easily have just pushed over main, played to kite it out, and then lay it on the corner, play the corner a point a little bit, and then go for that. But instead, they push all the way in.
This is another one of the things that is difficult to teach to these kind of teams, which are like not professional teams that haven't had a ton of coaching before. I can tell that clearly this team's fight plan was to fight early, right? I can already hear in my head like giving this VOD to this kind of team, and they're like, "Oh, but we said to kite early or fight early, right? So why would we kite the ult when it's like you need to play flexibly? No matter what your team's fight plan was here, if something happens, you need to be willing to fucking change your plan on the fly." And what he's saying is that this rush was so bad and this Orisa is so far that there's no reason not to kite, and he's right. And I can see you guys forcing it, your mentality, your wrist is reaching for backline, you're sliding through the right. Like you don't need to be doing any of this shit, regardless of what the fight plan was, right? You don't need to commit to the call. And I think when he said like you don't unlock kiting ults until top 3 OWCS, he's honestly kind of right. Low OWCS teams and FACEIT teams can kite ults. I see them do it, but only if they planned to kite the ult in the pre-fight. And that's dangerous to do too, right? Because if we plan to kite the ult in the pre-fight and then something happens that would make it really good to actually ditch that plan and hard fight them early instead, they won't do it, right? Because the plan was to kite in the pre-fight. You can't just hard plan to kite an ult or hard plan to go early. Things are going to go wrong.
So if Kawhi is leaning left and slides left, he'll be fine, right? But instead, he slides away from the point and away from where his Kiri was playing. Remember, his Kiri is there on the left.
If the plan is to fight early, that's good. Set up to fight early. But there's always a flexible spot. I want to fight early. I want to poke the walk up. Those are good things. But there's a spot where you can do that. And also, I can, if shit goes wrong, I can just leave. I'm just looking for any sign that we need to change the plan, right? So the biggest signs is like, if my Orisa gets poked out early, that's an immediate sign, right? We're all going to leave because my Orisa knows he's going to leave and he's going to say back up, right? And that's just all you have to say, back up. One person says back up, boom, we all back up, right? Or maybe my Sojourn takes a rail in the face. He has to slide out. He says back up, boom. Those are 2 things instantly, right? Or The tracer gets in through right, for example. Now my position isn't really that good anymore. I don't want to fight up here. Back up, right? And so it's like there's a bunch of things that could happen that would tell you reasonably, I don't want to be doing this plan anymore, or the plan has not worked, or we've missed our timing, right? And instead of forcing that, we just say someone says back up, and everyone should be able to just back up because the way we have played fundamentally hasn't actually hard committed us. People get tricked into thinking that this is a communication thing, but it's actually not. It's a skill thing. My Orisa and my Sojourn and my Lucio and my Tracer need to be in positions where they can if anyone says back up instantly, then they can just back up, right? And that's the skill part of it. Where if you find yourself unable to do that, you're committing way too hard to these early fights and you're not
like
positioning yourself flexibly where you can react to things.
Yeah? Yes, this is cap vision theory.
Cap vision theory.
You once again beating me to the punchline 3 months in advance.
Happens. That was a good video though. I like this video. I think the way that he coached, everything he told him was correct. Let's go to Cager now. Let's watch the Doom Widow one to support the Nightmare Boys. Cager's editing is probably better than everyone else in the Overwatch community, right? But like, this is clean, right? Signy Sports.
Earlier this month, with Widow, one of the most important aspects is being incredibly expensive to kill. Might not make sense yet, but take this fight here. Chronic is playing as far away as possible by the coast edge.
When we were talking about the hit scan thing, what Hunter's saying, this is like a little bit of an advanced version of that concept. There's a spectrum, maximum safety, where I can play maximum value. This is like the dead zone, right? Where you're not actually doing anything. Most of the time, be somewhere kind of in this zone, which is like an aggressive enough spot that I'm threatening people and people want to be diving me, but I'm still have like a reasonable amount of safety. I have options. What he's about to talk about is like a more advanced version, which is like how to get value out of these zones where you're in a more dangerous position, but it's fine because the amount of resources they'll have to commit to kill you is the way that you're actually getting value. This is a concept that Ana players have to deal with a lot, especially Ana Lucio dives that aren't really good at peeling, right? So it's like, here, this comp isn't good at peeling me at all. If I try to play a lot of safety, we just don't have any tools to keep me alive, right? So it's actually kind of better to like find ways to bait yourself, and then I do get extreme value. If they go on me, then it takes a ton of resources and my team gets a bunch of kills anyways.
And even though this amount of devotion to killing him means that Painkiller can go kill you.
Frees up your team a lot, even though Painkiller, how many left clicks did we miss here? Actually, it's Joybaiting Wednesday. We're not counting missed left clicks.
Now, I've already shown you clips of Painkiller shredding with Empowered Punch, but how does he get his punch to begin with? Well,
that's actually a good point.
That's from the sim.
The way that you're making points here, right, which is like first the basics of the macro of Doom Widow, how to play against him, playing Widow specifically, how do you get value, playing Doom specifically, how do you get value, like trying to
But how does
to get your punch is like an incredibly important part of this comp, right? You can play Doom and you can do all the macro you want and you can be preventing and punishing TPs, but if you're not getting charged punches and your Widow's not hitting headshots, then it's like
that's from the sim.
It's all completely useless.
As soon as the orb is about to hit Painkiller, he pops the power block and reliably farms punch.
This is something that Doom players do a lot, which is they'll hold their punch and they'll look at you and then bait everyone to shoot them, and then they'll actually cancel the punch and do the block. And then like you just take a bunch of spam. Like one of the only ways to actually get people to shoot at you is like charge your punch, boom, everyone else shoots it at you and just block it.
About how underrated sim orbs
Broken.
Because this last fight though really embodies everything mentioned so far. Because of how much better Science Ult economy is, they can afford to go in super early.
Yeah.
Chronic starts off by popping the sights, giving Painkiller the block
giant
punch, but because of
good
the
block.
visual aggro, I think it's decent.
Yeah,
he then pops Meteor Strike, landing on top of the Chambali building. Coupled with that Excavate, you can imagine what happens here. And fortunately for Sign, Yubi goes down here. Now things need.
Chronic is disgusting,
bro. The real macro this fight was deciding to go early. Yubi just couldn't move or get a good TP off at all. And that's
good point. Like touched on the micro. Honestly, this is well made. Like touch on the micro of the punches, good blocks, good Widow positioning, and then also the way that we take this fight doesn't let them TP, right? Like they want to TP, so my Doom goes in and blows all his cooldowns to stop the first TP, then he ults and uses his ult to stop the second TP, and it's like no one on Twisted Minds gets to go anywhere this fight. This is kind of the first fight with some tricky points.
If Painkiller knew Twisted Minds were playing underneath, he'd just drop down and punch 5 people at once.
Yeah.
Even Rocket could come from behind and do some kind of borrow play.
Yeah.
All of this would have at least let Chronic live a bit longer, so he's got a greater chance of hitting a shot. In the wise words of Capitology, if Sign could just see more...
That's what I was about to say. Between my Lucio and my Venture, there's no excuse not to be seeing this rotation and punishing that with someone, right? I think this was honestly, this video is really good. Like, I think the points make sense in the order that you put them in, especially, and also I really appreciate that you cover macro and micro, especially in the order that you do, right? Where it's like, this section is the intro, well-made intro. This section is like the basics of the comp and the macro, and then you immediately go into like how to do it, right? Which is important. I think like the other big Overwatch analysis channels focus a lot on what is happening, right? And if I think a normal video on this comp would have been a lot about like what happened fight by fight, commentating, right, and explaining, right? And it's like there's value to that, but you describe how to do it. Like what if you want to try this, what do you need to do, right? Which is like it's an important part that misses a lot. And also the video length, 9:28. It's easily digestible. I wasn't really bored at any point in the video, right? Which is important. I get so bored so easily. But